Have you ever noticed that as the years pass, something inside you begins to quiet down? The endless pressure to prove yourself, the constant comparison, the noise of the outside world, it all starts to fade, and in its place, a kind of calm you didn't expect, a clarity that seems to come out of nowhere. It's not talked about often, but for many, this mental shift is one of the most powerful parts of aging. In this video, we're going to explore why your mind often becomes sharper, not duller, as you grow older. We'll talk about the psychological changes that bring this clarity, the surprising freedom that comes with age, and why this stage of life might just be the most mentally liberating chapter of all. Welcome back to Elderly Rise. Today we're talking about something most people don't realize, why your mind actually gets clearer as you age. Yes, clearer, not cloudier. Number 1. When we're young, our identities are often shaped by how others see us. We're taught to seek approval from parents, teachers, bosses, and even strangers. A good job title, the right clothes, a successful-looking life. These are the things we chase, hoping they'll prove we're enough. But the truth is, all that striving creates noise in the mind. It keeps us constantly measuring ourselves against others, always wondering if we're doing life the right way. In youth, we're taught that success is external, that it's about how we appear, not how we feel. So we compare, we perform, we exhaust ourselves trying to fit into expectations that often weren't even ours to begin with. And it's not just about careers or accomplishments. It's about appearance, popularity, even how put together our lives seem on the outside. But something powerful happens with age. Slowly and often quietly, that pressure starts to fall away. It's not that we stop caring completely, but we begin to care differently. We start to realize that most of the people we were trying to impress were never really paying attention in the first place. And even if they were, their approval didn't change who we are deep down. This is where mental clarity begins to emerge. When you stop chasing validation from others, your inner voice becomes louder than the voices around you. You begin to trust your own judgment, your own values, your own intuition. The need to please everyone slowly fades, and in its place grows a quiet confidence that says, I know who I am now. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself or prove your worth. You're not trying to win over crowds or fit into anyone's mold. You've already lived through enough to know what matters. And that knowledge becomes like an anchor in your mind, steady, grounding, peaceful. Lived experience through disappointments, achievements, mistakes, and wisdom earned over time. You stop needing applause for every choice because now you make those choices based on what feels right for you, not what looks right to others. Ironically, the more you stop chasing validation, the more authentic your life becomes. You attract people who truly value you, not for your status or image, but for your spirit, your presence, your kindness. And those connections, they feel deeper, more honest, and far more fulfilling. There's peace in knowing you don't have to perform anymore. You can just be. You can say no without guilt. You can say yes without needing to explain. You can wear what makes you feel good, spend time the way you want, and live in a way that aligns with your own rhythm, not the world's. And in that space of self-trust and self-acceptance, your mind becomes clearer. There's less clutter, less noise, less overthinking. Decisions become easier. Priorities come into focus. You no longer waste mental energy trying to be enough because you already know that you are. So if you've found yourself letting go of what people think or feeling less concerned with others' opinions, embrace it. That's not you getting old. That's you getting wise. That's the mental shift no one talks about. The beautiful moment when you finally stop chasing approval and start living in truth. Number 2. As we enter our later years, something profound begins to happen, not just to our bodies but to our minds. The mental checklist we carried around for decades starts to feel lighter. The things that once seemed urgent or essential, like climbing the career ladder, impressing others, or staying on trend, start to fall to the side. It's not that we stop caring altogether, but we begin to question why we ever cared so much. That moment of questioning marks the beginning of a deep mental shift. In our youth and middle adulthood, society conditions us to chase status, chase success, chase approval. But as the years pass, we gain the gift of perspective. We begin to realize that chasing rarely leads to lasting peace. In fact, it often keeps us in a constant state of restlessness. With age, the chase slows down, not because we're incapable, but because we choose peace over pressure. This shift doesn't happen all at once. It's a gradual awakening. Maybe it starts when you retire and notice how your mornings feel different, quieter, slower, but also calmer. Or maybe it hits you when you lose someone close, and suddenly the small things like arguments or missed promotions feel meaningless in comparison. Life's natural rhythms begin to show you what truly matters and what doesn't. Your priorities, once shaped by the outside world, begin to turn inward. You start valuing your time more. You protect your energy. You say no more often, not out of selfishness, but out of clarity. You know that every moment spent worrying about unimportant things is a moment you won't get back. And so, you become intentional about who you spend time with, what you give your attention to, and how you want to live your remaining years. Interestingly, the sharpened focus isn't about becoming rigid or closed off. It's the opposite. It's about becoming more aware. You start to notice the beauty in simple things again. A good cup of coffee, a quiet walk, a genuine conversation. You no longer need grand events or big accomplishments to feel fulfilled. The noise fades, and what's left is the richness of ordinary moments. Relationships, too, undergo a transformation. You no longer tolerate superficial connections or people who drain you. Instead, you seek depth. You crave authenticity. You surround yourself with those who bring peace, not drama. And when you find yourself alone, you're not lonely. You're content, because your relationship with yourself has grown stronger, quieter, and more compassionate. One of the most empowering parts of this shift is how it affects decision-making. In your younger years, choices were often clouded by what others might think. Now, you choose based on what feels right to you. Your values have become clearer. You trust your instincts more, and you stop needing approval for the way you live your life. And while younger generations might chase speed and productivity, you begin to honor slowness. You take your time, you savor things. You stop multitasking and start being present. This doesn't mean you're slowing down in a negative way. It means you're finally giving each moment the attention it deserves. There's also a spiritual layer to this mental shift. Many older adults begin to reflect more on purpose, legacy, and meaning. You start asking, what do I want to leave behind? What stories do I want to share? What truly matters to my soul? These aren't questions of regret. They're questions of alignment. They help you live with intention and with peace. In the end, the sharpening of focus that comes with age isn't something to fear. It's something to celebrate. It means you've survived the noise of life and emerged with wisdom. It means you're no longer controlled by distraction, but guided by clarity. This isn't the decline of the mind. It's the refinement of it. And it's one of the greatest gifts of growing older. Number 3. As we grow older, something subtle yet powerful begins to happen in our minds. The endless stream of thoughts that once ran through us, worries about work, children, finances, image, and expectations, begins to slow down. It doesn't mean life becomes empty. Rather, it becomes more intentional. You begin to think with more purpose. The mind stops trying to juggle everything and instead starts choosing what truly matters. That alone brings an overwhelming sense of peace. In youth, we often live on mental overdrive, constant multitasking, constant comparison, constant planning. We worry about the future and replay the past, often at the same time. This creates a kind of background noise in the mind, like a radio that never stops playing. It's exhausting, and for many people, that mental clutter becomes so normal they don't even realize it's there. It just becomes the water they swim in. But as you age, you start hearing that noise differently. You become more aware of what drains you. You notice which thoughts are helpful and which are just clutter. You've lived long enough to see that not every thought deserves your attention. And so, without even realizing it, you start turning the volume down. You learn the art of mental silence, not by force, but by wisdom. This clarity isn't about intelligence. It's about selectiveness. You no longer entertain every worry or opinion that comes your way. You no longer feel the need to mentally argue with everyone who disagrees with you. You stop obsessing over outcomes and start embracing the flow of life. That shift frees up a tremendous amount of mental space. It's like clearing out a crowded attic. You finally have room to breathe. With less mental noise, you also begin to feel more grounded in your own presence. You're not constantly pulled by distraction. You're not always on alert. Instead, you notice the little things, the sound of birds, the warmth of sunlight, the quiet joy of your morning routine. These simple moments become fuller, richer, because your mind has stopped racing and started listening. One of the unexpected gifts of aging is realizing that most of the things you once worried about didn't really matter. The opinions of people you barely knew, the small mistakes you made, the deadlines you once lost sleep over, they faded. Life moved on. And this realization trains the mind to stop obsessing over the trivial. You begin focusing only on what brings peace, not pressure. There's also a spiritual element to this clarity. For many, aging deepens a sense of connection with God, nature, or simply the universe. The ego softens, the need to control everything weakens, and in its place comes surrender, not in a passive way, but in a deeply wise way. You stop fighting every wave and start floating with the current. The inner resistance lessens, and peace finds room to enter. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It often comes through pain, loss, disappointment, and growth. But over time, your mind becomes like a still pond, calm, reflective, undisturbed by every ripple. That doesn't mean you stop thinking or caring. It just means your mind becomes a safer, quieter place to live in. And in today's world, that's a priceless gift. Many younger people fear that aging means mental decline. But for those who embrace the process, the opposite often happens. Yes, memory may slow, but wisdom speeds up. And that wisdom allows you to sort through life's noise and choose peace. You stop trying to be everything, know everything, or fix everything. You simply start being fully, calmly, and intentionally. So the next time you find yourself sitting quietly, not needing to rush, not needing to think about 1,000 things, recognize it for what it is. It's not boredom. It's not forgetfulness. It's clarity. It's peace. It's the soft, steady gift of a life well lived. And in that stillness, you are not losing your mind. You are finally hearing it. Number 4. One of the most profound mental shifts that happens as we age is the quiet but powerful move from resistance to acceptance. In our younger years, we often fight life. We resist things not going our way, we push back against failure, and we struggle to control outcomes. But as time passes, you begin to realize that life has its own flow. You stop trying to swim upstream all the time. Instead, you learn to float, still aware, still present, but no longer exhausted by the need to control everything. This acceptance doesn't come from giving up. It comes from wisdom. You've lived through heartbreak, loss, changes you never saw coming, and joys you never expected. And through it all, something inside you matured. You began to understand that peace doesn't come from having a perfect life. It comes from making peace with an imperfect one. That realization alone clears an enormous amount of mental fog. Think about how many sleepless nights were spent worrying about things that never even happened. Or if they did, they weren't as bad as we feared. Over time, the older mind starts to let go of that constant worry. You stop playing out worst-case scenarios in your head. Why? Because you've already faced some of those scenarios. You survived. You learned that you are far more resilient than you ever gave yourself credit for. And when you truly accept the past, not just the good parts, but the mistakes, the regrets, the missed chances, it frees your mind from carrying that weight. It doesn't mean you forget or pretend everything was perfect. It means you stop fighting with reality. You begin to treat your story with compassion. You see your younger self not with judgment, but with kindness. And that kind of self-acceptance changes everything. Acceptance also transforms your relationships. When you're younger, it's easy to want people to change, to expect others to behave the way you want, to say the right things, to meet your expectations. But later in life, you begin to understand that people are who they are. You either meet them where they are, or you walk away in peace. You stop trying to fix others, and in that space, your mind becomes quieter, and your heart becomes lighter. This shift toward acceptance also affects how you deal with uncertainty. You no longer panic when life throws you a curveball. Instead of immediately reacting, you pause, you breathe, you observe, because you know that most storms eventually pass, and even if they don't, you will learn to dance in the rain. This kind of trust in the process of life doesn't come easy. It's earned, and it's one of the greatest gifts of growing older. There's also a spiritual dimension to this. Many people find that as they age, their sense of connection to something bigger, whether it's nature, faith, or a deeper inner knowing, becomes stronger. That connection allows for even greater acceptance. You begin to sense that there's a bigger picture at play, that not everything needs to be figured out right now, that maybe, just maybe, everything is unfolding the way it's meant to. In a world obsessed with control, youth, and perfection, acceptance is a quiet rebellion. It says, I no longer need to fight myself, fight time, or fight the natural flow of life. It's not laziness, it's not weakness, it's clarity. It's understanding what's worth your energy and what isn't. When you live from this place, your days become simpler. You stop rushing, you stop comparing, you start truly living. And here's the surprising part. This mental shift doesn't make you passive. It actually makes you stronger. Because when you're not busy resisting life, you have more energy to respond to it, wisely, calmly, and intentionally. You gain the power to choose your battles. You become grounded. You become someone others turn to, not because you have all the answers, but because your presence brings peace. So if you've been feeling a sense of calm lately, if you've started letting go of things that used to bother you, if you've stopped trying to change what can't be changed, you are not losing your edge. You are gaining something far deeper, wisdom through acceptance. This shift is one of the clearest signs that your mind is evolving, not declining. And that, dear friend, is something to be deeply proud of. Number 5. As we grow older, something quietly powerful begins to happen. We stop living in the someday. In our younger years, we often chase dreams that always seem just out of reach. Someday I'll travel, someday I'll rest, someday I'll feel fulfilled. But with age comes the realization that someday is no longer a destination. because today is all we really have. You begin to see that life isn't measured by how much you've accomplished, but by how deeply you've experienced each moment. The morning sunlight on your porch, the sound of birds, a quiet conversation with a grandchild. These moments used to be background noise. Now they feel like the main event. This shift isn't about slowing down. It's about waking up to the life that's right in front of you. You start to notice details you once missed. How your tea smells in the morning, the warmth of a soft blanket, the comfort of simply being here. You become more present not because time has run out, but because you finally understand its value. Every hour feels more precious, not in a fearful way, but in a way that makes you want to honor it. And with that respect, your mind becomes quieter, more focused, more alive. Worries about the future lose their grip. Regrets from the past soften their sting. You've lived long enough to know that both are out of your hands. What is in your hands is the moment you're living now, and you hold it more gently than ever before. This mental shift, this deeper presence, is something many younger people don't even know they're missing. They scroll through life, distracted, restless. But you've learned how to sit still, how to listen, how to simply be. And in that stillness, there's a clarity no one ever taught in school. You don't need to be entertained every moment. You don't need noise or updates or endless plans. You find joy in simplicity, watering a plant, petting a dog, writing a letter, because in simplicity, your mind isn't divided, it's whole. Being present also means you're more emotionally attuned. You notice when someone is hurting. You hear what's said between the words. And because you're not rushing, you're able to give people the one gift they crave most, your undivided attention. This clarity doesn't arrive in a grand moment. It grows quietly, like wisdom often does. It's not something you seek, it's something you become. And by being present, you begin to experience something rare, contentment without needing more. So if you found yourself smiling at the sky for no reason, if you're finding peace in silence, if time feels slower but more meaningful, that's not just aging, it's awakening. And you, dear friend, are exactly where you need to be. As you move through the later seasons of life, you may find yourself feeling more grounded, more peaceful, and surprisingly, more mentally clear. That isn't just a coincidence, and it's certainly not something to brush off. It's the result of a lifetime of experience, growth, and inner work. The clarity you feel today is something you've earned, not from rushing, but from slowing down and finally listening to your inner voice. It's that quiet strength, that ability to filter out the noise of the world, that defines this stage of life. You're no longer pulled in 100 directions. You see what matters. You've become wiser not just because of what you've learned, but because of what you've let go. So if you feel more certain about who you are, more accepting of life's imperfections, and more focused on what brings you peace, embrace it. That's the mental clarity no one told you about, because only you could discover it for yourself. These are not years of decline. These are years of deepening purpose. This clarity is a gift, one that allows you to live more intentionally, love more freely, and reflect more deeply. And perhaps most beautifully, it allows you to appreciate the present moment, not as a stepping stone to something else, but as something whole and complete, right here, right now. Thank you for being part of Elderly Rise, where we honor the wisdom, resilience, and quiet power that come with age. If today's message brought you comfort or clarity, we invite you to subscribe, share this video with someone you care about, and keep walking with us on this meaningful journey. Remember, your story isn't fading, it's unfolding in a new, beautiful way. And sometimes the clearest vision comes not in our youth, but in the calm after the storm. You are not alone, and you are not done. You are rising with clarity, strength, and grace.